Leno's Garage. Today we're featuring two exceptional automobiles, hypercars if you will. Both of them are made by Koenigsegg, you know, the Swedish manufacturer, the Regera RS and the Regera. Now this one has the distinction of being the fastest production car in the world. No other car has gone faster on a public road than this very car. Not one like it, this actual car. And if you watch my CNBC show, you'll see how we took it out on the road and had some fun with this. This is the one that really intrigues me because this has a whole new form of transmission that no one's ever done before. We are fortunate enough to have the man who designed these cars here today. You know, I was doing my TV show. It was fun to meet film stars and pop stars and people like that, but my real heroes are all engineers, and this gentleman is certainly one of them. Let's bring him in, Christian von Koenigsegg. Christian, come on in, my friend.
Thank you, Jay.
Good to see you. Welcome
Good
back.
to see you again. Thank you so
Always
much.
a pleasure to have you here. Very modest guy, but he has built these exceptional automobiles, and this one is the fastest in the world, faster than the Bugatti Veyron, and then the McLarens, and than anybody else out there.
It's amazingly fast, if I may say it myself.
Yeah.
I think it kind of even took us by surprise how fast it was in the end.
So tell us what we have here. We have here a V8.
Yeah, it's a homegrown, engineered by ourselves, built by ourselves, all aluminium, 5-liter V8, double overhead camshaft, 4 valves per cylinder, dry sump lubrication. It's actually the world's most downsized, fully homologated car engine.
Now, what do you mean by downside?
So it's 5 liters displacement and up to 1360 horsepower. So if you bring that down to like a 1 liter engine size and would have the same kind of technology, it will be around 260 horsepower.
Per liter?
Per liter, exactly.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting. You don't really think about downsizing in hypercars, but you want a compact, lightweight powertrain with a lot of torque, good response, a lot of top-end power, but not bigger than it needs to be, because weight is your enemy and space is your enemy in a car like this. So downsizing kind of comes into play. It's just not spoken about so much in that terminology, but it is the same thing.
Now, if you read a lot of the automotive blogs, people don't have any idea what they're talking about. Start all these rumors. This is your engine, you designed it. It's not based on a Ford V8 block or an AMG or any of that. It's your own engine, your own design, correct?
Correct. I mean, when we started out building cars early on, we actually started basing them on like Ford V8 engines and so on. But as time passed and as our needs grew and we saw the possibilities of what we were capable of, we got away from that and started casting our own blocks and doing all of the internal components ourselves. Even the controllers are our own. So it is as much our own engine as BMW have their own engine or Mercedes have their own engine.
Because boutique manufacturing is very popular now. People get the brakes from this person, an engine from this person, transmission from somebody else. Even McLaren went to BMW Racing for the F1, of course. Yeah. Paul Roush, just a brilliant guy, designed that motor. But this is all done in your factory. You make your own wheels.
Right.
You make your own brake calipers.
Even that.
Every single part of the car.
Yeah, I mean, we make our own PCB designs, our own controllers, our own wiring harness. As you mentioned, we pioneered the hollow carbon fiber wheel. Still today, it is the lightest carbon fiber wheel in production, even though we conceived it 8 years ago.
Right.
And when we did, the big car manufacturer said, that's impossible, no one can make carbon fiber wheels. Now some of them do, and now they don't say the same thing anymore, but we're still lighter and stiffer than they are with their wheels.
And yours are hollow, correct?
That's the unique technology.
Right.
They're, first of all, made in an autoclave, so we get higher pressure than anyone else not using an autoclave for wheels. Secondly, we have the patented hollow technology. So instead of being like a U-beam shaped spoke, or just a flat spoke, it's just a hollow tube. And that is, as everyone knows, a stronger construction than an open construction.
Right.
So that's the key. Yeah, and as you mentioned, we make our own brake calipers. We have the world record in stopping from 250 miles per hour to zero, or 400 kilometers per hour to zero in less than 10 seconds.
Really?
And that's a world record. So I would say they have proven themselves.
Yes, they certainly have. Now, we'll talk about the differences between these two cars. This one, for lack of a better word, would be more hard-edged, more racing-oriented. This has some luxury features, electric doors, more luxurious interior, and of course a very trick transmission, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Let's focus on this one. This one we took out and we were driving earlier today. That'll be featured on the Jay Leno's Garage on CNBC. We took it up in the hills and we really had a lot of fun with it. and you'll see why it goes 207 miles an hour. Actually went faster than that, didn't it? That was the
0.9.
average.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were on a shut down road in Nevada, not that wide. It felt very smooth at 100 miles per hour, but at 280 miles per hour it felt a little bit less smooth at that speed. But yeah, it was on a slight incline. So going, let's say, downhill, we hit the rev limiter at around 284 miles per hour, which was incredible. But even going uphill, which we did within the prescribed half hour, we hit like almost 250 miles per hour, which was faster than anyone ever managed to go in a straight line with no uphill inclination. So the average was 277.9 miles per hour.
Now this engine is solidly mounted to the chassis. This one is rubber mounted to the chassis. As we were driving these, he said, put your hand on the chassis. I didn't feel any vibration. Maybe I felt more visceral, certainly.
Exactly. So this one is really about optimizing weight at almost any cost. So we, early on in the process, decided we'll use the transmission and the engine as load-carrying chassis members, so we can have less of chassis members otherwise. And normally that makes a lot of racket inside the car and a lot of vibration. But it's really a testament to how well balanced that engine is that you hardly notice it. You hear more of the mechanical sounds, which many of our customers kind of start enjoying over time. You hear everything going on. It is louder due to it, but I would say it's still livable. But then you also get that kind of go-kart feel because you have no secondary motion in turns. Everything is just held together as one solid piece.
So what does this car weigh?
Curb weight with all the liquids, full tank of fuel and everything, it's 1,420 kilos.
So that's under 3,000 pounds.
It is, definitely.
Or 28, something like
27, 28, something like that.
Right, okay, pretty
impressive. And that's with like 4 smart airbags. It actually do have a stereo with an amplifier. It has actually, for the US, electric seats and power windows. So it has a lot of creature comforts, power steering, ABS, all these things. But in modern standards, with all the safety equipment you have to put in and all the emission controls you have to put in, and the creature functions that is now demanded by the customer, it is extremely light.
You know, a lot of times when people come with supercars, they say, well, we're waiting for certification. We'll have it any day now. The government will approve the car. They don't get approved. They don't pass emissions. They don't pass crash tests. These are fully homologated. You can drive them anywhere in the United States. You can sell this car in California, correct?
You have the engines are compliant to the carb emission regulations. We have all the smart airbag systems. We've done 18 crash tests to comply with all the safety regulations.
So you have to crash 18 cars?
Kind of. You know, we have used basically 2 chassis monocoques with a lot of different body panels and crash beams outside of the monocoque, but we managed to get through most of those tests with only 2 chassis, which is detrimental for such an expensive car. You can't take like 18 new cars and smash up for a program of only 80 cars.
Yeah,
so.
And you're doing a Blues Brothers movie. Now tell us how many horsepower this car is.
So this one has 1,360 horsepower, which
1,360.
and that equates to 1 megawatt of power. And it was actually the one-to-one predecessing this car, which was even more track-oriented than this, and a little bit lighter. It was the world's first megawatt car. So we called it the world's first mega car. And this is now beyond that. This is 1.1 megawatt because this one has 1,500 horsepower. But 670 of those are electric. And here it's only combustion engine.
Only combustion engine. How many speed transmission?
This is a 7-speed transmission with a paddle shift, and then you have an electro-hydraulic differential, which we developed ourselves for the car, which works brilliantly, and it makes the car a lot of fun around the racetrack.
And it has twin turbos.
Twin turbos, yeah, absolutely.
And the roof comes off.
Like most Koenigsegg's, I would say all Koenigseggs, the roof come off. The only car that you couldn't store it in the front was the one-to-one, because we had big aero ducts there to have maximum downforce. But all other versions, including the Regera RS and the Regera, you can take off the roof, put it in the front. And what I think is really unique is that when the roof is on, there is no extra shut line or extra rubber seals or a step in the bodywork that give away it's a hardtop. It's just a natural shape like it was a coupe. So we're kind of jokingly saying you get 2 cars for 1. If you only want a coupe, you just never take it off. You have a perfect coupe.
Yeah, people just don't realize this comes off.
It's so seamless, people don't even realize it. Exactly.
And I should mention the record was broken using regular pump gas. Pull into a gas station.
It's whatever you can.
No trick fuels.
No. It is a flex fuel car, however, so it goes on 91 octane up to E85, which is like a biofuel you can find on many stations here in California. And the more E85 you put in, the more power you get, because it has more alcohol, and alcohol has higher octane than normal gas and has a built-in cooling effect. So we have a flex fuel sensor that senses the amount of alcohol, and the more alcohol you have in the tank, percentage-wise, the more turbo boost you get and the higher ignition timing you get. So, but for sure, the fuel we ran is what you can find the equivalent of in a gas station in California, for example.
And as I said, if you want to see the video of this car going 277 miles an hour, it's on your website, correct?
It's on our website.
All right, let's move over to this one again. This is the one that really intrigued me. We're going to take this for a ride in just a few minutes. We'll take the roof off so you get the feel of what it's like. This car is a bit more luxurious, probably weighs a few pounds more, so
yeah,
maybe you'd knock a couple of miles off the top speed. I mean, please.
It's marginal.
My favorite thing is everybody loves gull-wing doors, but or doors that cut into the roof line. I've got a first edition Ford GT 2005. Trouble is, you go into a parking space, you can't get out if there's anybody even in the spaces next to you. You literally have to either crawl out on your hands and knees.
Right.
Whereas these doors, well, let's open that door. Let's show them how it works.
On this car, it's actually fully robotized.
Right.
So you don't even have to touch it. It just goes up by itself. The wing mirror goes in. The same goes for the whole bodywork, actually. It's all robotized.
Now, you were the first guys to do this. This is your invention, this kind of door.
It is, yeah. We're the first ones making this one, and only ones, as far as I'm aware.
That's what I find fascinating. There are literally hundreds of manufacturers doing all kinds of different things, but they all seem to be a variation of something that's already been done. This is totally, would you call this what, dihedral? What do you call it?
Well, we have the short name. We call it the dihedral synchrohelix actuation door mechanism.
Oh, that's the short name. That's a short name. What's the long name?
A nice door.
A nice door. There you go.
So it's actually more practical and functional than fancy in a way. People think we do it because it's cool, but if you look at this, you can actually park this close to another car, and the door is completely out of the way of the opening.
And you can literally step into the car much easier. You're not going inside with
exactly. There's nothing in the way.
There's nothing in the way.
We have a very wide sill, which makes a very wide door. And why do we have a wide sill? Well, you want to sit central in the car for aerodynamic reasons and weight distribution. And then you want, of course, a safe carbon fiber monocoque. And then you want good aerodynamics. So you don't want too much indentation between the wheels, which have to be far and wide apart for handling, and then you end up with a wide door sill. And in this case, you can actually sit on it and have a picnic even. It's pretty comfortable.
Right, I have a picnic, yeah. If you can afford one of these, you're probably not going on too many picnics, you know?
Who knows?
Well, these use basically a different version of the same engine, correct? Both 5-liter?
The base version of it is the same. They have slightly different turbo configuration. Here, as we have so much electrification, we could afford to have slightly smaller turbos, so they spool up a little bit quicker. On this one, we need all the power we can get, so they're slightly bigger. They actually don't have a lot of turbo lag anyway. They're actually very responsive, but here they are super responsive.
Well, this one does something really interesting. We'll talk about the transmission as we're driving it, but let's give people a quick overview. It's direct drive. There is no transmission per se in this car.
Right, so you have only like a final differential, like a final gear. Then that's connected to what we call the Hydra Coupe, which is basically a glorified, super extreme billet aluminum torque converter with lockup.
Right.
And this torque converter that we have developed in-house has to do the most extreme job in the world of any torque converter, because it has to transform those, let's say 1400 horsepower from the combustion engine and the little electrical motor on the combustion engine to the wheels, and starting in like 7th gear.
Right.
To help out, we have also electrical motors on the rear wheels, one for each rear wheel, so we can also have torque vectoring. Reverse is actually electric on the rear wheel motors, because there is no reverse gear.
Right.
And everything working together, basically it's a seamless symphony working in harmony. It just feels like one big combustion engine shoving the car forward.
That's right. And this one, you feel that, I mean, you feel it shift.
Yeah.
This one, it just keeps climbing. It's like a jet turbine.
Something
it just
like
keeps
that.
pulling, almost like steam. You know, it doesn't end. And I found that really fascinating, because it's truly unique to this car. There's no other car that have this feature. If you've ever driven a Tesla or any high-performance electric car, when you put your foot in it, you just go. And that's what you have here, which is really amazing, because you have an electric engine that literally spins the crankshaft, doesn't it? It's as
Yes.
if a giant's hand
It's helping out.
helps it. So that overcomes any turbo lag.
Exactly.
Because the engine is spinning fast already. You know, turbo lag happens when you're waiting for an engine to spool, like put a foot in it, and then it comes in.
Right.
Whereas this, the giant's hand, as I call
Exactly.
it, just takes it,
We have
crankshaft
400.
spins it.
We have 400 newton meters of extra torque from 0 RPM on the crank,
Yeah.
and then whatever the combustion engine is doing on top.
Let's open the hood.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you can do it from the remote, and it
Yeah.
just pops up. And actually, the rear hood is the fuel filler cap. So when you go to the gas station and you fill up fuel, we didn't want to kind of clutter up the bodywork.
Right.
So you reach in the fuel filler cap with this up. So
Oh, the
there's
fuel
always a
filler
good-
is right here.
Yeah, there's always a good talking point at the petrol station about the engine.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. Well, it's as beautiful on the inside as it is on the outside. Just fascinating.
We try to, well, actually make it more beautiful on the inside than the outside. It should be like a Fabergé egg. That's the idea.
Right. Our electric motors are inboard, much
Yep.
like Jaguar disc brakes used
Kind
to
of
be.
like that.
Sort of inboard here, so you don't have unsprung weight at the
Correct,
wheel. Very
correct.
nicely done. Yeah.
And they sit next to the differential housing.
Yeah.
And then you have the pinion coming out of the differential housing into the Hydra coupe, which is the super extreme billet aluminium torque converter with lockup. And then you have the crank and the V8 engine. And then in front of that, on the crank, you have another electrical motor, which acts as a starter motor for the combustion engine, and it generates electricity at low RPM to the rear electrical motors to support the combustion engine, which also helps through the torque converter via the differential.
And obviously, all this carbon fiber you make at your shop.
We do, we do.
Yeah.
We have several autoclaves and very skilled persons helping out making carbon fiber.
What are these two fillers here?
So one is the coolant for the electrical motors, and one
Okay.
is the coolant for the inverters.
I see.
And that's all part of the EV system. We have the world's first 800-volt electric propulsion system of any production car. There are others coming out eventually, but this is the first one in the world. So we have almost 700 electrical horsepower in this car. So if we remove the combustion engine with its 1200 horsepower, whatever it is, it's still an extremely powerful EV.
Sure.
And the reason to have 800 volts instead of like 400 volts, which is more normal, is that you can have thinner cables, smaller inverters, more compact electrical motors, and have the same power as something bigger as if it was 400 volts.
Gotcha. Now this is transmission cooler, oil cooler?
Yeah,
or
so
what?
the top
No,
one.
there's no
that's-
transmission. It's not a transmission.
No, you're
cooler.
right. So you almost caught me there. So this snaking thing on top, that's actually the differential cooler, and what's below it is the Hydra coupe cooler.
I see. Now, is this just to protect this, or is there?
No, that is the coolant circuit for the differential.
Oh, okay. Actually, goes through here. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's actually enough.
Yeah.
It's not like a huge surface area for the space.
Sure.
But it doesn't block the airflow very much for the more important Hydra coupe cooler.
And the way these shocks work, I'm not even. What do you call that? Is that your triplex?
That's our triplex suspension.
Yeah.
So we have one like third element of a shock absorber connecting the left hand wheel to the right wheel. And what that enables is we can have a cleaner geometry in the suspension with the help of this third element damper. So instead of taking out squat through a geometry and diluting the other geometries, we do it with dampening technology. And that makes a truer contact patch of the tire than otherwise possible.
And these are your catalytic converters here.
Yeah, that's correct.
Are those your oxygen sensors there?
Also oxygen sensors,
Right,
we have
right.
several of them. With the CARB California emission regulation, you really need to keep track of anything that could deteriorate emission-wise.
Yeah, that's what's amazing with over 1,300 horsepower. What's it, 1,500 in this
Well,
one?
in this case, it's like 1,200 in the combustion engine,
Right.
and then you have 670 electrical horsepower on top.
But it still manages to meet all emissions. That's
It does.
that's pretty
With
amazing.
a pretty good margin. So.
Yeah, that's just fantastic. Now, these Michelins, are they made specifically for this vehicle?
Yeah, so we worked very closely together with Michelin, and in this case, we did not specifically develop the S4 tires, but this one has an aero pack on it, so it means it has Cup 2 tires, and they were specially developed for Koenigsegg.
Okay.
But you can actually buy them in a place like over the internet, you know,
Right.
tire shops, because they're not exclusively sold to us. It's just that they're exclusively developed for us.
Right.
So they become slightly better priced that way.
And these are all titanium Torx in here?
Correct. And that's a very interesting mechanism here. controlling the top-mounted active fully foldable rear wing, which is the world's first again.
That moves.
It moves for braking, and
Right.
it moves up and down at speeds, or you can have it always up.
So it acts as an air brake when you're on the brakes,
Absolutely.
and then goes back to being a...
Absolutely.
Okay, wow. Very, very cool. I like the exhaust system, very nice.
Yeah, so you have what actually looks like the exhaust is, funnily enough, the hot air exhaust from the inverter coolers.
Oh, is that right?
So that's our electrical exhaust. The
Okay.
real exhaust are these fishtail fins in titanium.
Oh, I see,
acting
yeah.
as strakes in the
Oh, look at that.
Venturi.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a little mind game.
I didn't realize. Well, that's cool. Well, right here is what we're talking about.
Exactly. So those are specially designed by us, manufactured by Akrapovic,
Yeah.
who is the world leader in titanium exhaust systems. And actually, when you drive hard, you have hot air coming out from the central exhaust, very clean hot air from
Right.
the EV coolers. So that's the EV exhaust.
And what does this car sell for in the United States?
So they're all gone and sold out,
Right.
all 80 of them. That's the
Right.
limited run. They had a starting price of a 2.2, and
Right.
then you can play around with specifications.
You get the floor mats and
the full visible carbon body,
air freshener.
24 karat gold leaf striping,
Yeah, all
whatever
that.
you might
Right, yeah.
fancy.
Well, you don't even need that. This car speaks for itself. Well, let's put the hood down and show you the logo, which is pretty fascinating. It's got a great story too. It kind of looks like Casper the Ghost, but that's not what it is.
It does look a bit like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So that ghost we call the spirit of performance.
Yeah.
And it comes from the fighter jet squadron whose hangars we inherited, very much looking like these in a sense,
Right.
but they housed small fighter jets, Swedish Saab fighter jets. The government, well, felt we have no real threat here in Sweden, so they started shutting down all these fighter squadrons. So we were lucky enough to take over their facility, including the runway as a great test track that we can use 24/7. But this ghost was their symbol, and their slogan was, "The show must go on." And this was in 2003 when we moved in there. And the pilots came to us and said, we're a little bit sad that our 80-year-old history is disappearing. Couldn't you honor us and putting our symbol on your cars? It's almost like a low-flying jet, and
Yeah.
and you're using our runways and this and that. So we said, all the cars we build in that facility, which we're still in, we will put the ghost on. So if we would ever have another facility, I guess we would not put the ghost on those cars.
Right.
Only the ones built there.
Let's take the roof off and show people how that goes in the trunk.
Absolutely. So first I'll open your door here.
And you reach in and unbuckle
Yeah.
it, right?
Let's have a look.
And up here. There. Okay. My side's undone.
Yeah,
You got to open the hood first?
there it goes. And the
Do you
roof-
need me, or can you get this all yourself?
I can get it all myself, but it's
Okay.
better if you help me lift it.
All right,
It makes
here
it
we
a
go.
little bit
You
easier.
got it?
I got it.
Okay.
So it is doable on one person, but easier if you're two. Then carefully point it here.
We should explain what those hoses do.
Yeah, so they're drainage from water coming down from the window if it's raining or if you wash the car.
Oh, you just unplug those?
Just unplug those. And the theory is, of course, if it rains now, it will be more wet inside the cabin of the car
Right.
than here. So it should all be fine.
It fits in there?
It fits very snugly in here. That's correct.
Oh, that's very
That.
cool.
And then you can close the bonnet again.
Right, okay. Close her up.
It's like a quiet ballet.
Yeah, no, it's great. And boy, it's a whole different car at the roof off. It suddenly seems, it's an exciting car to start with. It just seems
Yeah.
more exciting. Beautifully designed interior, nicely done, not too much bling, just enough.
It's a balance, you know, and you can make this matte instead of shiny or
Right.
or gunmetal, depending on the interior.
Well,
All
show
these-
the key, show people the key.
Yeah, so it's a proximity key with all the functions to operate all the bodywork, the doors. So if you walk up to the car, it kind of unlocks itself. And then it has a magnetic holder here.
The magnet holds it against the dash. You know, so many cars have these giant keys, and then where do you put it?
Right.
You hit the brakes and it flies into the footwell somewhere. Whereas that just, it's got a magnet, it just stays right on there. Very cool.
Yeah, and it's easy to reach and easy to see. And you can actually operate it inside the car or on the center console as well.
And you see much more plush leather seats than in the RS.
It's a bit more elegant, and that's more sport. We can
And the
say.
seats are electric as well?
They are 6-way electric. You can adjust them up and down
And seat
tilt
heaters and all that
seat
too?
heaters. We even have a front glass heater, so it's an all-weather car.
Right.
It's really designed for everyday use. We have even 2 wireless phone chargers. You put it in the glove box and it charges your phones, as we have wireless CarPlay in the car as well.
Oh, I see. Explain why the windshield wiper is dead center.
Right, so actually on our early cars where we had a similar windshield wiper, we had it lying down. But then we noticed that when you look in that direction, it's actually more kind of obstructive in the view looking down on the road than if it stands straight up. And
Yeah.
it also is much better for aero if it stands straight up. So
Okay.
in our calculation when we did the top speed run with this car, which also have the windshield wiper in the same position, we could see it's a 1 or 2 miles per hour difference. And as we have such a wide windscreen, like a widescreen windscreen almost, it doesn't really annoy you when you drive. You
Right.
stop thinking about it. But if anyone wants it lying down on the side, it's easy for us to do.
Gotcha, gotcha. And this is the hardest windshield to clean from the inside. It's
Yeah, you have to have long arms here too.
That's why you have children. That's what they're for. Yeah.
All right.
And of course, it's got paddles, but not in the traditional sense because there's no gears to shift. Just
Right.
to engage the there's no transmission. Just to engage the drive. You go
Yes.
forward or you go
Backwards.
backward.
And then you can also, when you get up to speed, if you're cruising, the hydro coupe goes into lockup mode. And as soon as you move your foot fastly or deeply, it goes out of lockup mode. But if you want to preempt that even, you can go out of lockup mode and be in open mode at higher speed with the help of the paddles as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because, you know, this website, as I said before, has always been about unique driving experiences. Things that get cars that don't do things that normal cars do. And so many cars all kind of do the same thing. I mean, that would be a more traditional supercar.
Right.
The superest of supercars being the fastest and the most powerful.
If you wish.
But it's still traditional in the sense that it's got an engine, it goes through the gears. This uses electrification as well as this sort of trick drive system that I just find fascinating.
Yeah, it was a very exciting challenge to create this car and its unique systems. And along the way it was kind of finding out interesting ways of combining electrification and combustion engine and nice surprises along the way what actually could be done.
Well, I'm anxious to put my foot in a car and see what it sounds like when it doesn't shift. Can we take it for a ride?
We should go for a ride.
Let's do it.
Please.
Let's close the... Not feeling it shift.
Exactly.
This is something your friends will have. Well, what is it like? Everybody wants to know. How is it different, you know?
I mean, people who like DCT transmissions.
Yeah, it's very good.
Takes a little bit getting used to, but usually feels pretty natural just after a few minutes.
Do you think this will become your standard transmission? Not standard, it's manual, but I mean your transmission for Koenigsegg?
For a long period of time going forward, yes. For our, let's say, more luxurious models, for sure.
Yeah.
Where you value torque everywhere and power everywhere at an instant. With a little bit, as it is electric powertrain, of course, you add a little bit of weight. But as we remove the whole traditional drivetrain, the weight penalty is minimal.
Yeah.
So for let's say the Regera RS replacement, it will be more of a analog experience than this.
Yeah.
So we're kind of going in two directions at the same time. But it's amazing. We didn't expect this to be as fast as it is around the racetrack. Even though it's slightly heavier than our 1-to-1, it's matching the lap times because you have power instantly everywhere at a flick of your foot.
Well, the thing I like about it is it's unique to the car. It's unique to Koenigsegg. It is something different from what the other people have.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what I like. It's your own motor and your own type of transmission.
Right.
And of course, the biggest compliment is when the other manufacturers start stealing it or
Right.
trying to come up with their own version. But
Exactly. We will see.
but see, I think I like this one better already, just because I feel I'm in the future
Right.
more than the past. You
Right.
know,
It's something. It's definitely wouldn't have been possible more than 5 years ago.
Right.
It
Yeah,
wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah. How much heavier is this than the RS?
So in pounds, it's about 350 pounds.
Okay.
So I would say, given the extra 400 foot-pounds of torque, it's not a lot.
Right.
And then another 300 horsepower. So I think
Right.
it's, and the directness of the power really compensates a lot.
What's so feel not to feel the kick of it shifting?
And of course it has electric propulsion with that directness, but if you compare it to, for example, a Tesla, which was part of the inspiration to have no gears,
Right.
if you're used to drive an electric car, you don't really think about missing gears.
Right.
You just feel the directness and torque as the positive side of things. But the difference here is it's relentless. With most electrical cars, when you get up to speed, they kind of taper off. This one just sucks you in more and more
Right.
the faster you go. There's no end to the power delivery.
But it has a torque converter.
It does.
Yeah.
So that
And
combined,
what kind of fluid do you use?
it's an ATF,
this
high-end ATF fluid.
Just standard ATF?
Yeah, you could say, well, it's a high-end, but it's basically an ATF, yeah. But the torque converter is in itself, which we named the Hydra Coupe, is super extreme. It's a billet machined, very advanced hydrodynamics, and it has to convert more than any other torque converter in history, because we're basically starting in 7th gear,
Right.
but with electric support. So and I think the reason why no one ever came up with this idea is that the torque converter is such an old school invention. It's like the opposite of high tech in many people's eyes. But when you look at it, it's a beautiful turbine. And if you have the openness in the mind to combine the beauty of its function with super high tech electric propulsion, you get something really new.
So, to the uninitiated who don't quite get what we're talking, it's as if the car is in 7th gear all the time, but the power is augmented by the electric motors,
Yes.
which take the place of the first 6 gears.
Exactly. So you can get electric power from the crank,
Right.
electrical motor,
Right.
to the rear electrical motors, but you're also getting the power from the combustion engine to the wheels through the torque converter, and from the battery pack to the rear electrical motors.
Would this be more fuel efficient than the Regera or less?
It's more fuel efficient.
It's more fuel efficient.
Mostly because of regen.
Right. Yeah. Pulls really hard. And in some ways, it feels faster. I know it's not, because you're not getting the shift.
Yeah.
You know-
it is actually faster.
Huh? Yeah.
In acceleration.
Oh, it
it's
is actually. It
faster.
is.
Yeah, it is faster.
You know, when the Porsche Carrera GT came out, it had a 6-inch carbon fiber clutch.
Right.
So I called Porsche and I said, "Can I just buy a clutch? Can you send me one?" And they sent me one to look at, and we took it all apart. I said, "Well, I got to buy the car now," because I just like the fact that it's the last analog Porsche.
Right. Yes.
You know, and
very lightweight
they
clutch.
work hard to come up with the best manual transmission they could for the last analog Porsche, at least up to that point. And that's what impressed me so much about it. And that's what impressed me about this. I like the fact that it's a game changer. It's new technology. But see, I like to say, people say, "Well, what's different about that but a Pagani or a Lamborghini Aventador?" Well, this one has no transmission. And I go, what do you mean it has no transmission? And then you explain, and then you don't understand, and that's the fun part.
Right, exactly. It's like, how does it all work together?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of, in a way, so simple that it's difficult to understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that.
I like any car that gives you something no other car in the world has.
Right.
And that's what really makes it different. Let's do something impractical.
So there you have 2,000 Newton meters of torque.
And what is the horsepower rating of this car?
1,500.
1,500.
On 91 octane fuel.
Yeah, yeah.
This car is actually the world's first homologated 800 volt EV.
Yeah.
So if you remove the combustion engine from this car, it runs fine as an EV with an 800 volt system. And no other EV in the world today has a homologated system with 800 volt. And this means the power lines can be thinner, every thing can be a little bit smaller and more compact, and thereby saving weight.
But can you go just electric only on this?
You can,
Okay.
you can.
But it's only a couple of miles. So.
Yeah, the battery is small. It's not. We didn't want a bigger battery than we needed for performance.
So basically the same engine as the Regera, right?
Yeah, as a V8 twin turbo.
Twin turbo.
Slightly smaller turbos because we have so much electric power as well.
Right.
And with the smaller turbos, we get even better spool up.
Okay.
So that's priority we made.
I just like that uninterrupted flow. It's not.
And you can just keep on going.
Yeah.
It's relentless.
And it just keeps pulling all the way. That's what's kind of fun.
So theoretically, we have still yet to test it, but theoretically this car is close to making 0 to 250 miles per hour in 20 seconds.
Really?
Theoretically it's 21, but we will try to make it in 20 because it's such a nice, round, cool number. And that is 3 seconds faster than the world record today.
Yeah. Who holds the record?
The Regera RS.
Oh.
So we do.
That's a funny story. It's your own record. I'll tell you a funny Frank Sinatra story. Frank Sinatra, kid picks Frank Sinatra up to take him to where he's going out to eat. And Sinatra gives the kid a $100 tip.
Right.
The kid goes, oh, thanks. You know, he's a little miffed that the kid isn't being a bit more, because it's the 60s, $100.
Right. Oh,
like
yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
You know, so he's like, yeah. So when he gets out, he gives the kid another $100.
Wow.
The kid goes, whoa, thank you, sir. And Sinatra says, no, I'm just curious. Who gave you your first $100 tip? He goes, oh, you did. And like you say, it's proven technology. The torque converter is something that works.
Yeah. It's like taking existing components and mixing them together in a new recipe that no one did before.
You know, I've got a Doble steam car.
Right.
And that was faster than the Duesenberg, because even though the Duesenberg was initially faster, you had to shift. And while you were shifting, that was still pulling. The pulling never stopped.
Right.
And with the steam engine, you always get that same, you know, excitement of
torquing.
Yeah. How many of these have you sold now?
We've sold all of them, and that means 80. That was the limited run.
18?
80.
Oh, 80. Wow. Oh, you sold, actually built 80 of these already.
No, we've sold them. So we are in the production line right now at 20, and 5 are already finished driving around. So.
But this won't be the only vehicle that has this transmission.
No, we are planning a lineup of cars with this kind of transmission.
Yeah.
So this is the first shot at it. And we do actually have some other car manufacturers kind of carefully inquiring about this. They're curious. What does it do? How does it work? And can we really get rid of, like, if you have a truck, you have like 12-speed gearbox.
Right.
And I tell them, you don't need that. You can cruise around electrically in town.
Right.
And then you accelerate out on the highway, and then you start your combustion engine with the help of the torque converter, and then you lock up, and then in direct drive, you save 12 gears, and you have no pollution in downtown.
And you have no turbo lag because the electric motor is spinning the crankshaft, which is tricking the engine into thinking it's at higher boost than it is. Yeah. No, it's brilliant. It's just
simple.
Great.
It's very simple.
Well, if it was that simple, more people would have thought of it. You're not giving yourself enough credit. I think it's really brilliant. It's really smart. You know, I just like it because it's new.
Right.
Because the only thing that differentiates most supercars is they've got more power than this car.
Right.
And they maybe got, you know, fancier interior. But basically, it's just a matter of who has the more horsepower.
Right.
And the horsepower race is over. We all won. We all got so much horsepower that you can use.
Yeah.
So when I see new technology come in that tames that horsepower and makes it more livable and more, and feel like more perfection.
Accessible.
Yeah, accessible. That's the word I want. Yeah, it's really something. I'm really impressed with this. It's really nicely done.
Thank you.
Like I've got a couple of cars with launch control. I never use it because I always feel like I'm overstressing axles and half shafts, and for what reason am I doing that? You know, it just feels like I'm twisting metal.
And with this one, it's really easy. If you want to have like launch control, the only thing you do is you, at a red light, you hold your left foot on the brake, and then you start throttling in, and then
So
it
you
revs
torque
up.
load it.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
torque and you just release, and you kind of
Yeah.
have a very smooth launch.
Yeah, yeah. And then she regens, obviously, when you're off the brake.
Yeah.
Can you adjust the regen, or is
Yes.
it just...
Yes.
Okay.
We can have the medium, high, and low, and it's just what do you prefer? Of course, the high regen saves a little bit of fuel and
Right.
a little bit of brake pads.
Yeah. Well, what an experience this has been. This is truly a groundbreaking automobile, because we said a couple of times in this video already, you know, we love unique driving experiences, and there's no other car that gives you this. There are a lot of supercars that have similar power,
Sure.
but don't deliver it this way. And that's what's really unique about it, is this direct drive transmission. It's really fascinating, and it feels unlike any other supercar. As much as I like the Regera RS, and that's the world's fastest production car, this is a bit more refined, a bit more civilized.
It is.
That one rides, you know, you feel a bit more. It's more visceral, which is fine,
Yeah.
but this one is so seamless, and it's so much fun to hit the transmission and feel it gear. You're just waiting for it to shift, and then it never does. It just keeps climbing and climbing.
Relentless.
And so, you know, I never met the W.O. Bentley or Duesenberg, but to meet engineers like Gordon Murray and, of course, Christian, it's really an honor and privilege to have you guys here. And I'm so thrilled that when you bring this stuff to my garage and I get a chance to drive it. I really am the luckiest guy in the world. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
And so,
Really enjoyed it. Out there.
check it on his website, and you'll see the fastest car on a public road in the history of the automobile. Thanks, you guys. See you next week.
Mm-hmm.